Hello everybody, we are back to answer your questions, comments, and concerns about my fan story, Your Hero Academia, based off of My Hero Academia, which is currently my favorite anime. What?
Nothing, I'm tired, I'm awkward, I have zero camera presence, I don't know what's going on,
Stop me anytime you feel like.
Sorry.
Let's see, so last chapter we had the not date happen and it ended with things of the USJ starting to get kicked off. And later on in the video, you'll get to hear my dramatic reading of what actually happens at the USJ, and I know a lot of you are interested to see where that goes and how Kurai plays a part in it. But for now, we're going to go over your guys' review from previous chapters. So, who and what do we have?
Alright, Anime 02 Fruit. Okay, I shan't more you. I don't know.
What is that?
I don't know what that means.
You're more...
I shan't more you. Is it a face?
I think that's supposed to... I think that's a face, but I shan't
it's
more...
Like
what?
I don't know.
What?
I don't know.
Help me. If you see this video, please help. Please translate.
Thank you.
Speak English.
Thank you for your
review. Comment, but...
I think it's like a little face with a whole...
Oh, okay.
Like shutting.
But I don't know. I shan't more. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't understand what's happening.
I shan't more. I don't know. Anyway.
Okay.
All right. Fairy Sing Girl.
Oh,
awesome. I liked Kurai's not date with Mina. And Ida finding out Kurai's brother told him, and then this whole outburst about disrupting the class dynamic was pretty funny. Poor Kurai, though. The part when they were making fun of Bakugo was funny.
Making fun of Bakugo is always funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And oh dear, now they have to deal with the League of Villains crashing their class. Yep. So yes.
What does Asui say in the original? I love it. This is turning out to be a terrible day of class.
Yeah. Sue is the
frog girl.
No, I know.
Oh. What?
Never mind.
What is it? She's
the voice of the audience.
Oh,
yeah, very
okay.
the obvious what the audience is thinking.
Okay, all right, yeah, that makes sense. What?
All right, Masion Lightus, great chapter mate. Can't wait for more. Also, I'm guessing the support item is a lightsaber, and I'm guessing his hero name might be Kaiser. That's German for Emperor. Blade Hero Light signing out.
Nice guess on the.
That's
That's a pretty good hero name, actually.
That is an interesting hero name.
I mean, you're onto something there. You're not quite right, but
close. Though.
Yeah, you're fairly close. As for the support item, I mean, you can see like right here. I think my hand is about where Kurai is. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
lightsaber.
Yeah, it'll happen eventually, if not in this chapter. Do you have to do that every time? Do I need to break out my Jar Jar Binks impression? Okay, there we go. All right, let's move it.
I wasn't being an annoying.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't. But
okay,
you're very close.
Okay,
all right. Who else we got?
Silly Kira. I love that handle. Still, every time. I appreciate you. We laughed about it last time, too.
I know, it's still funny.
It's great. I love it. Alright, I'm tempted to complain about the cliffhanger, but having read a few of your other works, I know that won't do too much good. You're
not wrong.
You seem to view it as a staple in your writing style?
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah, he does this to me. He'll, get me all excited because he's written a new chapter, whether it be for his novel or one of his fanfics, and I get all excited. And then he leaves me hanging like this. And then he's working on 5 things simultaneously. So I just go insane waiting for the next chapter of the one that I was left hanging on. So anyway.
But it keeps you coming back.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
So either you're a masochist or I'm a sadist. Maybe both.
Yeah, you're doing your job as a writer.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep.
Alright. In any case, this was good fun. This was a good fun chapter. Though I do have to say the scene at the end felt a little jarring to be put after the fluff piece like the rest of it.
I mean,
that's kind of My Hero Academia, though.
Yeah.
If you think about it. Every time there's a lot of fluff, you're like, crap, what terrifying
what could possibly go wrong now?
Because That's kind of how the show goes, if you think about it.
I say the exception to that is the most recent season, because they actually have that genuine arc where it's like
pretty
nothing bad happens.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, yeah.
Well, the fight with Endeavor happens at the end of the season, right? But that doesn't directly correlate to what's going on with the school festival.
But it is one of those moments where the bottom drops out from beneath you because you don't know what's happening, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just kind of a staple in this series itself. But I can see that too.
Yeah.
Still does leave me curious as to how the USJ events will play out with Kurai's presence. Personally, I think he could be put down somewhere on his own. He'd be fine. I'd kind of like to see some solo action from him again. He kicked ass in the entrance exam. Looking forward to the next one already. Cool.
All right. Yeah.
So he's wanting him to be solo, and yeah.
I mean, you're right. He probably would be fine if he was on his own.
Yeah, it's tricky with these kinds of scenes because it's like, how do you insert a new character without taking away from what the other characters do?
Yeah.
But it also has to has to have a purpose. Whatever the character ends up doing.
Yes.
Even if it's like throw in something random.
Yeah. Even if a new character's presence doesn't necessarily directly alter the outcome of an event, be it a fight or what have you. What's important in that scenario, I think, is the way that they interact with either the characters or the world around them, and how that impacts them, or
and
they
your
impact
story,
vice
and the
versa.
way that your reader is understanding the world. So okay, cool.
No, I can see why you request that. I mean, was there any more?
That was it.
Okay, then here in a minute you'll get your answers to who, where he gets put, if he gets put up with anybody, and yes, you'll get to see a flashy new support item happen here in a few minutes.
Yeah. Alright.
But, alright, we'll be back after the audio chapter, and we'll talk about the next chapter. Fatal Risk. From above the scene of the battle, Kurai and Midoriya watched as Aizawa tore through the ranks of the villains with seemingly little effort, never hesitating, striking swiftly with unnerving accuracy. Wow, I guess he doesn't need any help, Izuku muttered. This isn't the time to be analyzing, Ida called back from where the rest of the class was retreating. We need to get out of here. Yeah, he's right, Kurai said as he turned his back on the battlefield. Come on. Much as I hate to leave someone to their own devices like this, it's out of our hands. Setting off at a swift jog, he and Midoriya hurried to rejoin their class's retreat. They were about halfway to the exit with the sounds of battle fading behind them, when Kurai felt that uncomfortable shiver race down his back again. Before he could call out a warning to his comrades, a shadowy vortex opened up between them and the exit, growing to be at least 4 times their height. Unlike when it appeared at the fountain, however, the shadow now had a pair of gleaming yellow eyes near the top, which glared down at them with undisguised malice. And from the shadow spoke a powerful, echoing voice. Hello there, it said to them as they skidded to a stop, 13 at the head of their group. We are the League of Villains. I know it's impolite, but we decided to invite ourselves into this little haven of justice. While the voice was speaking, Kurai quickly readied his quirk for a barrage of energy blasts. Running from villains when his teacher told him to was one thing, but if an enemy was standing in their way of escape, he was prepared to not hold back out of self-defense. Wouldn't you agree that this is a fitting place for All Might to take his last breath? The shadow villain asked of no one in particular. I believe he was supposed to be here. I suppose there has been a change of plans that we could not have foreseen. Die! Bakugo and Kirishima launched themselves forward, the former unleashing a devastating explosion while his comrade hardened his body to both protect himself from Bakugo's blast and tear through the dark villain. Kirishima, Bakugo, duck! Kurai roared as he thrust his hands forward, sending out a barrage of energy blasts into the smoky haze that Bakugo's attack had left behind. Even before the assault connected with their enemy, the 2 students had rolled out backwards, out of harm's way. Unfortunately, Kurai realized that none of their attacks had been successful when his energon burst slammed into the wall and door behind the villain. No good, he growled. I don't know if we can hit this guy. But I'll bet he can hit us. His suspicions were confirmed when the dark mist reformed from the remnants of the smoke, something metal glinting from within its depths. You live up to your school's reputation, it said ominously, but I have no time to waste on playing games with children. Now I'll scatter you across this facility to meet my comrades, and your deaths! Shadowy tendrils shot out from the void, reaching for each of the students, even as darkness itself washed over them. On reflex, Kurai shut his eyes and braced himself for a physical impact. Hikari! He heard someone shout just before he and felt a jerking sensation, followed by a brief sense of weightlessness. The instant he opened his eyes, he was slammed onto his side on a rocky terrain. However, he had excellent reflexes that saw to him transforming his fall into a somersault that landed him right back on his feet before he could go any further down what appeared to be a small mountain of dirt and rubble. This looks like the landslide zone, he thought as he took in his surroundings, confirming to himself that it was, in fact, still within the USJ. At least we didn't get separated too badly, assuming everyone else is still in the complex. Looks like we have company, a calm voice said from a few feet to his left. Kurai seemed to turn to see Todoroki standing next to him, a neutral expression on his face as he gazed down the slope, where at least 20 villains were headed their way, chuckling ominously. Well, seeing as they've gone through the trouble to get themselves invitations, why don't we give them a proper welcome? Kurai said as he held 2 glowing balls of energy in his hands. I'll immobilize, you disable them. Todoroki nodded as he took a few paces to the left. From his right foot, a sheet of ice washed forth, freezing every villain in his line of sight solid, leaving only their faces uncovered. Nice, Kurai commented before hurling blast after blast at their exposed faces, knocking all of them out cold within a few seconds, save for one, a tall, muscular man with sandy-colored skin. Let's see if we can't get some answers out of these morons. His comrade nodded in agreement, already on the move. This is embarrassing, Todoroki said as he strode toward the remaining villain. Losing to a couple of children? For God's sake, put up a real fight. One villain that had managed to avoid the first ice blast erupted from the dirt to take a swing at the dual-quirked boy, only to have Todoroki move his head to the side and grab his club with his right arm, freezing it in place just like the rest. Listen up, he said as he allowed the would-be ambusher to fall on his face without a backward glance. If you stay frozen, your cells will begin to die as your body succumbs to hypothermia and frostbite. Now I want to be a hero, so that doesn't have to happen. We can avoid unnecessary cruelty. Stopping in front of the sandy-colored villain to place his wintry hand on his exposed face, he added ominously, But I can only do that if you tell me what you hope to accomplish here. Bird guy! The villain stammered as he tried to speak through his body's attempts to shiver. He's supposed to be able to kill All Might. As Todoroki withdrew his hand, the villain sniffled. Please, that's all I know! That wasn't very hard, Kurai commented as he hit the last 2 villains with an energon burst apiece. These guys seem like they're small time, not elite criminals. True, but it doesn't seem as though they themselves plan to kill All Might. Todoroki replied as an intense wave of heat began to emanate from his left side. My bet is they were meant to kill us while All Might fought that monster they mentioned. Letting out a derisive snort, he added, They severely underestimated us. By now, all of the unconscious villains had been freed from their icy shells, though the 2 students doubted they would be getting up anytime soon. To be fair, we did just get out of junior high, Kurai said with a shrug. How many kids are our age would you know of that would be able to handle this kind of situation like we did? Speaking of which, you kept your cool under dire circumstances even better than most of our classmates would have. And likely are, his classmate remarked as he looked him over with an appraising eye. I didn't see you get in on recommendation, though it seems as though you easily could have. My father's Commissioner Hogosha, Kurai replied, and you're Endeavor's son, right? Todoroki stiffened with surprise, but before he could say anything, Kurai preempted him by saying, Yeah, I noticed stuff too. In any case, I think we have better things to do than discuss our pedigrees. These guys plan to kill All Might. I say we get to work disrupting that plan. How so? His classmate inquired. From what I can tell, there are 4 or 5 people here that are truly dangerous, unlike these thugs. If it is their plan to kill All Might, and they went through so much trouble to sneak in here quietly, they may have well found a way to do it. Even so, it doesn't sit well with me to just wait around for another villain to jump us, Kurai said with a negative shake of his head. I'm headed to the central plaza to join up with Mr. Aizawa. At the least, he needs to hear about this, and maybe he'll have new orders for us. All right, Todoroki agreed. In all honesty, I don't really see any other course of action given the circumstances. You go ahead. I'll catch up and make sure no villains are following us. Thanks, Kurai acknowledged as he used his quirk to reinforce his limbs so that he could run at high speeds. Watch yourself, Todoroki. You do the same. Kurai made it to the plaza just in time to witness something out of a nightmare. The pale man with the hands gripping his body all over was laughing as the red and black monster was beating Aizawa into a bloody pulp. Judging from the amount of the red liquid staining the ground, he wasn't even sure that his teacher was still alive. All around that grotesque scene, there were perhaps a dozen villains left that the pro hero hadn't managed to get around to. Pushing his quirk to the maximum that his costume would allow, he shot for it, clearing the space between himself and the brutish monster in the blink of an eye, reaching for his brother's gift as he did so. Let's hope that this thing works, he thought with a brief moment of panic. Hitting a silver button on a cylindrical object about a foot in length, he felt some of his power being drained, but only for a split second. A yellow blade flashed to life as he swung it across the monster, holding his teacher, severing the elbows. The next instant, he had Mr. Aizawa slung over his shoulder a few dozen yards away from the beast, which was now missing its arms from the elbows down, a blank look on its grotesque face that showed no sign of pain or surprise. The thick appendages twitched a couple of times by its feet, but other than that, the monster stayed completely still. "That's freaky," he muttered as he threatened any of the other villains that were dumb enough to try and get too close to him with his sword. A photon blade, his brother had labeled it, though they both knew it was just to avoid a copyright strike from Disney Studios. "Alright, you all saw what my saber did to your big ugly friend over there," he said warningly. "Stay back, no one else ends up in pieces." The weapon had been modeled after one of the swords of Zakul royalty, a style that Kurai had long been enamored with. "You stupid kid," Aizawa grunted, surprising his student. "I told you to run." "Yeah, I tried that. We got warped to the landslide zone," Kurai informed his instructor. "I know Todoroki is on his way, and I suspect that the rest of our class was scattered to other places in the USJ. I can't account for anyone else, though." The whole time, no one made a move except for the pale man, who was scratching his neck furiously, muttering feverishly, though Kurai couldn't tell what he was saying. "You need to leave while you can," Aizawa urged him. "That monster, he's as strong as All Might." "Yeah, I kinda guessed," Kurai muttered as he eyed the beast. "Is he even human?" "Don't know. Run, Hikari. I won't tell you again." "Don't worry, I can get behind that idea," his student agreed in a lowered tone. "I'm not really too interested in finding out. Is that guy regenerating?" His exclamation of surprise was drawn out when the hulking monster's arms began to spit out new muscles, bones, and skin. If Aizawa had something to say, it didn't come out as anything more than a slight grunt as he passed out of consciousness. "No here has super regeneration," said a nasally hoarse voice. Kurai turned over to see the hand-faced villain giggling as his henchman finished growing back his arms. "Even if you can get past his shock absorption with your sword, it won't stop him from coming back, even if there's just one little speck of his flesh left." "Wait, which is it?" Kurai frowned. "His quirk lets him heal or absorb impact?" "Both," the skinny maniac laughed. "He's been bioengineered to take down the so-called symbol of peace." "Cool." Kurai deadpanned before hurling an energy blast at the villain, resulting in a small explosion. "Stupid villain," he added. "Monologuing is how the good guys win half the time, don't you know?" "Sorry, you were saying?" the nasally voice said from within the dust that the bolt had picked up. "Ah, damn," the boy muttered. Nomu had apparently put himself between his boss and the teenager, taking damage on the surface of his body from the laser, though the impact of the resulting explosion had done nothing to him. Setting Aizawa down with his free hand while keeping his saber activated and in a threatening position, Kurai asked, "Okay, so now what? I apparently can't hit you because of your giant bird brain there, plus I can't really leave my teacher, and you can't let him come near me because if he does get close, I will turn him into sashimi." The pale man laughed hysterically, saying, "You think you can take on the ultimate weapon that was created to kill All Might? You're strong, kid, but nothing like that piece of trash." "I don't want to bet," he said, hoping that his bluff might unsettle his opponents even just a little. He knew he was more powerful than the average pro already, but he was nowhere near All Might's power. Not unless... Nope! No. Not going there. The stalemate was broken when a duo of green-haired students broke into the scene. Izuku punched out a couple of villains with his right hand, his left tucked close to his body the whole time. Asuri roped up a few of the crooks with her tongue and smashed them into the others, taking care of the last of the minor threats. "Hikari!" Midoriya called over his shoulder as he kept an eye out for any reinforcements. "Are you okay?" "Ah, just dandy now that you guys are here." He grinned, relief flooding his limbs. "What took you guys so long?"
"We were dealing with some villains in the shipwreck zone,"
the frog girl answered.
"Midoriya thought that we should come here and help out Mr. Aizawa if we could."
"Well, you can still do that. Kurai told him as he leveled another energy blast at the Nomu and the boss. "That big guy messed him up pretty bad from what I could tell. He needs medical attention stat." "Sure," Midoriya nodded. "But what about you?" "I'm going to keep these guys busy until reinforcements show up," he answered tightly. "Hopefully Kaminari got a message out."
"You're taking an awful risk,"
Asui pointed out.
"That guy took out our teacher, and you think you can fight him off?"
"Yeah, I'm not a pro, I know," Kurai replied, his eyes keen for any movements from their enemies. "But I'm not going to let these guys get to any of you just the same." "Shigaraki," said a familiar voice that chilled the students before the shadow villain emerged beside the thin man. "Kurogiri," he replied, sounding annoyed.
Did you block their exit like I told you to?
I scattered the majority of the students across the facility, but there were a few that I was unable to disperse, his henchman answered. One of them got outside, and will likely return with the faculty members of UA.
While he was speaking, Kurai made urgent motions with his blade for Midoriya and Asui to leave with their teacher. Fortunately, they did so, though it was clear the boy was reluctant to leave his friend alone. Meanwhile, Shigaraki was scratching his neck in a frenzy again, this time hard enough to make himself bleed from some shallow cuts.
Kurogiri, you fool, he seethed. If you weren't our exit, I'd tear you apart atom by atom.
Hey, hands on, Kurai taunted him. How's about you pack it in and leave now while you can? Teachers will be here any minute, and then you guys are screwed. He thought that Shigaraki might be looking at him from behind the hand covering his face, but it was almost impossible to tell. However, he did stop scratching himself before saying,
You pesky little brat. I may not be able to kill All Might today, but... Nomu, kill him.
Knowing what was coming, Kurai swung upward almost before the beast moved, slicing his arm off again as he leaped backwards, narrowly avoiding the claws on the Nomu's other hand. This guy's too fast, he thought, sweat lining his brow. It's gonna be do or die, I suppose. Nomu was already charging at him, so he did the one thing he could think of, hurling his sword at the monster, its own momentum carrying it directly into the path of the whirling light. There was a sound akin to water hitting a red-hot piece of metal. Then the Nomu's top half fell off its waist, sliding to a stop just inches from where Kurai leaped away from. This buys me a few seconds, he thought as Nomu's lower and upper halves started crawling toward each other awkwardly, the flesh yearning to be whole once again. Strangely, no blood spilled from the grievous wound, though it hardly mattered to Kurai. Mother, Father, forgive me, he thought with a heavy heart as he yanked off his gauntlets and tore his chest piece away from his body, leaving him in nothing but a plain old gi. But if I don't do this, my classmates might not live to reach their own potential. I can't let that happen.
You're quick, but surely you realize that no one is coming in time to save you, right?
Shigaraki laughed.
You're not a pro. You're just a child playing hero. You can't beat Nomu.
Even so, Kurai growled, his fighting blood fully aroused now that the pressure points to keep him calm were no longer being applied. I will fulfill the obligations expected of a hero, and fight evil just as my predecessors always have. He could feel his every sense sharpening as the air around him began to swirl, drawing upward like a miniature tornado. A blue light sparked in his eyes while his hair stood on end, orange electricity crackling along his body. You want to kill All Might and my friends? He bellowed as energy flashed between him and his enemies. You're gonna have to make it past me.
Fine,
Shigaraki shrugged.
It doesn't matter if you have a flashy power, you're still not... Blam, crack, crunch.
Kurai landed 3 blows in the time that it takes to blink. The first 2 were delivered in the shadow villain, Kurogiri, rending the armor that Kurai had glimpsed before, could now see clearly. The man in the dark gasped and groaned in pain, collapsing where he stood. The third punch socked Shigaraki in the stomach, sending him splashing into the water and certainly breaking multiple bones. Before he could celebrate, however, Nomu was upon him, reaching out to envelop him in a spine-shattering bear hug. Instead of trying to completely dodge, Kurai charged the thing, nothing but a blur of orange and blue as he unleashed a blast of energy that tore through the Nomu's side, and created enough of an opening for him to escape. Where before the boy had unassuming features of black hair and brown eyes, he was now ablaze with an aura that matched his short orange hair and complemented his deep blue eyes. His speed was astounding, his strength awe-inspiring, and the power he exuded terrifying. Whirling around with all the force of his body, Kurai slammed the Nomu with a devastating kick that sent ripples across the water, and generated a strong enough wind blast to shatter many of the lights in the USJ. However, it seemed to do nothing to the villain himself, because as soon as he was done regenerating his flesh, he went right back to trying to vivisect Kurai. The boy was just too fast at this point, though, and he nimbly dodged swipes and even attempts to bite him. When Nomu finally threw a proper punch, Kurai countered with one of his own, stopping the blow in its tracks, though he could tell that his knuckles were going to bruise badly from that. Good, he thought with a fierce satisfaction. At least I'm strong enough to counter his brute force now, even if just barely. Switching gears, he began to let loose with a series of punches that Nomu mostly managed to block with his own fists, though Kurai did manage to get in a few shots. However, he did not possess Nomu's resilience to physical force, and so when the bird-faced monstrosity finally did manage to get in a good shot, he went flying into the fountain, destroying the stone and vanishing in a cloud of spray. Oh, not good, he thought as he coughed up blood, feeling the same substance beginning to trickle down from his lip from his nose. I gotta end this now if it's gonna happen. Hey, beak freak! He shouted as he forced himself to jump high in the air where he could get in a clean shot from above. Nomu's gaze snapped up to where he was at with a predatory gleam in its normally vacant orbs. I got something for you! Letting out a strange squawking scream, Nomu leaped up at Kurai. Even his orange energy began to gather between his palms, which he held at his side. I've been saving this one! He crowed once Nomu was about halfway up to him. Thrusting his hands forward, he roared, Kamehameha! An orange pillar of light blazed out of his hand, smiting Nomu just before it could reach the young hero in training, disintegrating most of its body and sending the remains down to crash into the ground, whereupon an explosion blew his head and left arm in separate directions. Landing hard enough to create a small crater, Kurai became aware of a few of his classmates standing nearby, presumably having come to help subdue their enemies. Kirishima looked in awe of his power. Todoroki seemed surprised, while Bakugo was staring at him with some mixture of grudging respect and fear? Ignoring them for the moment, he turned towards Shigaraki and Kurogiri, both of whom were standing up painfully. I beat your monster! He shouted as he leveled his hands at the both of them. Surrender or run!
No!
Shigaraki hissed, furiously scratching at his neck and shoulders where some of his hands had been torn away.
No! It wasn't supposed to go this way! Nomu can't have been beaten by All Might, much less one of his stupid kids!
Surrender or run! Kurai repeated, more blood dripping from his nose even as he began to feel a stabbing pain in his head, his arms trembling with the effort of keeping them up. Shigaraki flinched at the words, and for a moment Kurai thought that he might call it quits. However, much to his displeasure and worry, Kurogiri grunted out, Do not be deceived, Shigaraki. He is in no condition to fight us. Nomu clearly wounded him. He's barely standing right now. We can at least destroy the student of All Might as revenge for our losses today if we work together. Kurai and fought to maintain consciousness as the pain in his head grew worse.
Yeah,
Shigaraki nodded, calming down almost as quickly as he had become upset.
you're right. Okay, let's kill him and then get out of here.
So saying, he began to stalk toward the student, apparently ignoring the pain from his wounds. Not so fast, Kirishima declared as he moved between the villains and his comrade. You want him? You're gonna have to go through us. I don't care about that loser, but I'm still pissed at this guy for warping us, Bakugo snarled as he stood by Kirishima, leveling his gauntlet at Kurogiri. The students of UA will not fall so easily to the likes of you delinquents, Todoroki added as he stood on the other side of Kirishima, his right side poised to freeze the water that Shigaraki was standing in solid. You're not hurting anyone else today. Kurai grinned savagely even as his vision began to flicker and dim. Because... The last thing he saw before he fell into darkness was Nomu, fully reformed, charging at his classmates. I think he's waking up. Ugh. Shut up. Kurai's mind felt slow, and trying to summon any memories was like trying to find a single fish in the ocean. He's been talking in his sleep the whole while. How do you know he's going to wake up this time? A deeper, familiar voice asked. And judging by how much his eyes are moving underneath the eyelids, he's either having a nightmare or about to awaken, said another voice that Kurai recognized. Given that he isn't attempting to toss and turn like he has during previous REM cycles, I find it more than likely that he's coming around. Go away, Kurai grunted. See? The second voice chuckled. Wake up, Kurai. You've kept Mother and Father waiting long enough, as it is. Huh? In a flash, his memories of how he had lost consciousness returned, battling the villains alongside Todoroki, rescuing Aizawa, and lastly, his clash with the monster, Nomu. His eyes shot open in a panic, only for him to hiss in pain as his optical sense was assaulted by a bright light. Ow! He grunted. Take it easy, son. He heard his father say as a strong hand gripped his shoulder. You've had quite the experience. Hello, Dad, he replied, keeping his eyes shut as his head continued to throb painfully. Sorry to worry you and Mother. There will be time for us to be upset about your actions later on, the man laughed softly. We're just glad that you're safe now, he heard his mother say from somewhere to his father's left. And although your father is correct, we will be upset about the risk that you took later on. We are also proud of you. You are? He managed to crack open his eyelids so that his eyes could get used to seeing the bright lights of a hospital room before he slowly began to unveil the covered orbs. I don't think I even managed to save my classmates. Actually, everyone is fine except for a kid with green hair, Akurui said from the opposite end of the bed. Apparently he broke his legs or something. All Might showed up in time to beat up that crazy bird brain guy before he could get to your classmates. That's a relief, Kurai sighed. I am sorry I overused my quirk, but that Nomu thing would have killed me and my teacher if I hadn't acted as I did. Another moment's alarm prompted him to ask, Mr. Aizawa, is he... He was in bad shape, but it could have been much worse, his father interrupted him. He's expected to make a full recovery, though there is a chance that there will be permanent damage to his eyes. I understand, the recovering student sighed, disappointed at the news. It was good that his teacher's health would recover, but he sincerely hoped that defending his class would not cost him his career as a pro hero. You were admitted with multiple lacerations to your back and arms, not to mention some cracked knuckle bones, all on top of your aneurysm. It's a good thing Recovery Girl assisted with your treatment. The doctors expect you to make a full recovery, his mother informed him, though you'll likely have to have some lasting migraines for a couple of weeks, so they want you to take it easy. According to your classmates, you could give All Might a run for his money, his father said as Kurai was finally able to focus his gaze on the man. He looked almost exactly like Kurai, except with about 20 years and a goatee added. Kurai laughed with a pained grimace. Maybe, but I bet he doesn't end up in the hospital like me after fighting villains like that. Actually, he had to be seen by Recovery Girl, but he got out after one night. Hakurari corrected him, surprising his brother. I'll be fine, don't worry. That green-haired kid was telling us about it outside. Outside? Kurai repeated. Are my classmates waiting on me? Yes, Ida and a few of the other kids have been coming here for the last couple of days. His mother nodded. She was a short lady with purple hair and eyes, which attributed to her quirk, ultraviolet. She'd often joked that it wasn't fair how she had been the one to carry and give birth to her sons, only to have them both come out looking like their father. They've been quite worried, but the hospital only allows family in until a patient regains consciousness. If you're feeling up to a visit, we can send them in 3 at a time. Sure, Kurai nodded. Tell them to temper their expectations, though. I feel terrible. We'll let them know to keep it short, his father assured him. Hey, who's the pink girl? Hakurari asked. She seemed really... Let's go, son, Hogosha said firmly, escorting his youngest progeny out of the room with an arm around his shoulders. You can taunt your brother later. He left his mother with them, only pausing long enough... His mother left with them, only pausing long enough to give him a kiss on the brow. Kurai smiled, leaning back into the soft pillows that had enveloped his head as he cast his eyes about the room. Now that he was alone, he could see that he was in a private hospital room, featuring what he assumed was a fully furnished bathroom, a bench that could be turned into a pull-out bed, and a large open window that afforded him a decent view of the city. He could hear machines beeping behind him and feel the electrodes on his chest and back, but he really didn't like feelings moving to examine them any more closely. As the minutes ticked by, he wondered how long exactly it had been since he had lost consciousness. Judging by the IV drip in his arm and lack of thirst despite an empty stomach, it had likely been at least a day, maybe 2 or 3. He was wondering how he was going to catch up on schoolwork when the door to his room was open, and in came 3 people, muttering quietly among themselves. Hey guys, he grinned weakly as he recognized his friends. We're so glad you're awake, Hikari, Uraraka exclaimed as she ran around the opposite side of the bed from the door. She was carrying a small vase of some white flowers, and Kurai wasn't sure which kind. Deku and I got you these, she added as she placed them on the window. Thanks, guys, he said sincerely, touched by the gesture, even if he wasn't much of a flower guy. Turning to Midoriya and Ida, he added, I was glad to hear that you all made it out of that mess okay. Yeah, well, it was a close call, Midoriya laughed nervously. Thankfully, Recovery Girl's been able to get me back on my feet. I was able to reach the teachers in time to bring reinforcements, Ida informed him, but I doubt they would have made it in time if you hadn't held off those villains and rescued Mr. Aizawa. I get the feeling our class would have managed somehow. Kurai chuckled painfully. How long was I out? 3 days, Midoriya informed him. Classes are cancelled until next week because of the attack and the police investigation, but we all go back on Monday. Here's to hoping I can make it out of here in time, Kurai sighed. If you don't, we'll be sure to bring you notes and homework so you don't fall behind, Ida assured him, causing Kurai to roll his eyes. What a relief, he said, making no attempt to hide his sarcasm. Studies are important, and it's not as though you'll be doing much else, his friend objected. Except for, recovering from bleeding out of my brain, Kurai said wryly. Yeah, maybe let's just let him take it easy, Ida. Uraraka giggled. Who else has been stopping by? Kurai asked, eager to get away from the topic of schoolwork. Just thinking about straining his mind right now made him feel queasy. Well, let's see, Midoriya muttered as he thought about it. Sue stopped by on the first day with Kaminari and Jiro, but they've been staying home since then. They did say they wanted to know when you woke up, though, so I'll tell them later, Uraraka informed him. Kirishima and Ashido have also been here regularly with us, Ida added. Oh, and Todoroki is downstairs as well. We tried to ask him why he came by today, but he hasn't said much of anything to any of us. Still, he's been waiting with us, so we assume he's here to see you. He did mention that you two wound up working together against the villains, Izuku remarked. Maybe he wants to see if you're okay. That'd be awfully nice of him. Kurai smirked, and got out of character. Regardless, it's good to see you on the mend, Ida said with a smile. You really had us all worried, Kurai. Sorry, but I thought protecting everyone at the risk of my own life was kind of what a hero would do. He smiled lightly. It's what we're training for. The trio stayed talking with Kurai for a little while, but they left after about 15 minutes, aware that there were other people that wanted to see him. Bidding him farewell, they promised to come visit him in the morning. Next to visit were Kirishima and Todoroki. Before he could wonder why Mina hadn't come in with them, the exuberant redhead was standing next to him, saying, You, my friend, are the definition of manly. Huh? Kurai blinked in surprise while Todoroki stood to one side, his expression as blank as ever, making it impossible to tell his current mood. Dude, you took on a monster that took All Might to beat, and you almost won, too, Kirishima grinned. That takes guts, power, and skill. I've never seen anything like you and All Might just did. I'm just glad that I lived through it, Kurai grunted. Also, let's not do yelling. My head might still kill me. Whoops, sorry, his friend replied, making a conscious effort to lower his volume. I'm just glad to see you doing okay. Feels like we've been waiting forever for you to wake up. I just came in today, Todoroki muttered. Yeah, speaking of, how did you know he was going to wake up today? Kirishima asked him. Are you psychic on top of your ice and heat? No, I just had a gut feeling, the other boy answered. You know, you don't have to stand all the way over there, Kurai told him. I'm fine, he replied quietly. Okay, Kurai said as he glanced at Kirishima, who shrugged in confusion. Well, thanks for helping me out back at the landslide zone. Likewise, the half-and-half boy replied as he moved toward the door, apparently already leaving. By the way, Ashido is waiting outside the door. She wants to talk to you alone. Then he was gone without a sound. I can never get a read on that guy, Kirishima muttered. That's the longest interaction I've had with him outside of a fight, but I get the feeling that's as social as he gets. Kurai shrugged. Yeah, I thought I was an introvert. Yeah, man, you seemed really quiet when we all got started getting to know each other, not to mention you embarrass way too easy. His friend grinned crookedly. But you've got a real fire in that heart of yours. I get the feeling when people joke about you being the next All Might someday, they might be closer to the truth than they originally thought. There's only one All Might, Kurai said with a negative shake of his head. One symbol of peace. Only as long as you keep telling yourself that, Kirishima told him as he stepped back. I'll let Ashido in now since she wanted to talk to you by herself. Word of advice, though? Huh? The recovering boy asked, bewildered by the sinking feeling he had in his stomach. If you ever break her heart, super powerful or quirk or not, I'm going to make sure they move you from the hospital ward to the morgue. The redhead said with a wicked grin before he opened the door, a dangerous gleam in his eyes. Then the look was gone and he departed with the words, Get well soon, buddy. Yeah, I'll do that, Kurai replied, feeling supremely uncomfortable now. My classmates are all weird, he decided. No sooner than he formed the thought than did a messy mop of pink hair and yellow horns pop through the door, followed quickly by Mina, who shut the door quietly behind her. Hey, she said in an uncharacteristically quiet voice. Hi, he said with a small wave of his right arm, the one without the IV sticking out of it. Everyone said you wanted to talk to me alone? As he phrased the question, he felt an uneasy stirring in his chest, though why exactly that was, he couldn't fathom. Yeah, I did, she said shyly, not moving from her spot in front of the door. Now that I'm here, though, the words aren't coming out like I planned them. Did you forget who you're talking to? He said with a forced smile as he pointed at himself. I think the only person more uncomfortable than me in social situations is Midoriya. I guess that's true, she grinned back, but he could tell that she was forcing it too. When the silence between them began to stretch, Kurai said, Hey, mind coming over here? I'm having to strain my neck to keep looking at you over there. Oh, sure, she said as she crossed the room to his bedside. How are you feeling? Well, my head is killing me, but I think the suspense might beat it, he said with a raised eyebrow. What's up, Ashido? Well, she said, scuffing her foot on the floor as her cheeks blushed lilac. I was just really worried about you, you know? Wondering if you were going to wake up and all that. Was that it? He asked, confused. I'm fine. Just a little nosebleed. From my brain. Nothing a 3-day nap won't fix. I'm serious, she said, her caramel eyes flashing with traces of anger. You almost died. That's really scary. I know, he said calmly in an attempt to soothe any injured feelings. I'm taking this seriously, I promise. I just try to deal with my fear by laughing it off is all. It's how I cope. I guess I should be impressed that you cope with it at all, she said, the anger in her eyes fading as her shoulders slumped. I've always known that heroes have to risk their lives for others, but what you and our teachers went through just made it more, I don't know, real, I guess. Reality check, huh? Could I ask quietly? Yeah. I guess I'm already more or less numb to that reality, the boy said somberly. When Mina looked a question at him, he asked, You remember how I told you I have a cousin? When the girl nodded that she remembered, he continued, My father and his brother, my uncle, joined the police force around the same time. Both of them advanced rapidly through the precinct's ranks. Now my dad is the commissioner for Mustafar. I thought I recognized him. Mina nodded. That explains it. But where did your uncle come in on this? There was a battle with some villains about 10 years ago, when I was little. Kurai replied. My dad and uncle ended up in a firefight with some of the bad guys, and they were badly outgunned. Most of the men and women with them were killed or retired from the force due to permanent injuries before the pros showed up. Within minutes, All Might and Endeavor had the villains rounded up and in cuffs. Unfortunately, our number 2 hero was feeling pretty cocky, and he missed one of the villains that had a needle cork. He was aiming to stab Endeavor, but my uncle saw what was happening and put himself between the villain and his target. Closing his eyes, he sighed as he went on to say, Killed him on the spot. Left behind my aunt and older cousin. Endeavor came to the funeral, supposedly to repay his respects, but he looked like he was in a hurry to get somewhere else the whole time. I remember being really angry with Endeavor for not caring why my uncle basically sacrificed himself for his sake, and wondering why we revered heroes so much if that's what they were really like. But All Might was there too, and I heard him telling my cousin, Shukin, that even though his father wasn't a pro, he was the real hero that day, having seen the job through to the end. It was then that I seriously thought about becoming a hero, because All Might recognized that it's not even those with the most power that are heroes, but the people that risk everything to see justice done. I want to be a person that honors my uncle's sacrifice, whether I'm a pro hero or not. I certainly don't want to be a hero like Endeavor, a man who looks and acts the part in public, but couldn't care less about the people that he's supposed to be protecting. That's why you acted the way that you did, Mina said softly, as he opened his eyes again. You'd rather see everyone else safe, even if it meant losing everything you had going for you. If my life is the price for keeping others safe, I will pay it gladly. Kurai nodded. That, to me, is the mark of a real hero. That's really noble, his friend said. Kinda makes what I came to say easier and harder at the same time. Come again? He asked, now feeling really confused. You know how when we hung out on Sunday, I told you I wouldn't wait around forever? She asked. Yeah. I take it back, she said with slumped shoulders. I'll wait until you give me a direct yes or no. 'Cause I know I'm never gonna find a guy willing to risk his life like that for his friends. He blinked a few times in utter surprise before he said, You do know we go to a school where people train to do exactly that, right? Yeah, but that's the thing, she said earnestly. A lot of people train to become that way. Most of them aren't already here with that mindset. I don't think any of those people would give a slacker like me a second look, you know? You didn't run away screaming or laugh at me. And now I know that you've got a real hero in there. She pointed at his heart before adding, It's hard for a girl to want to give up even a shot at being somebody with somebody like that. Oh boy, he said blankly. You do like to move fast, don't you? I go with my gut, what can I say? She said, her cheeks coloring lilac again. So, do I have a shot? Can I answer that when my brain doesn't feel like it's just been punched by a sword? He asked. I'm not saying no, but I don't think I can make a decision like this when we're recovering from a life and death episode, both physically and mentally in my case. I promise my feelings are genuine, she told him earnestly. And I believe you, he replied gently. But you did say you'd wait as long as necessary to hear my answer, yeah? Then please give me a little time to think about all this. The part of my existence that's supposed to be making these decisions is kind of broken right now. Yeah, that's fair. She nodded, a little embarrassed. I shouldn't expect an answer from you right now. You're right. But soon? Soon, he nodded. Promise. And I doubt it's my brain damage talking when I say that our chances are pretty good. He managed to smile at the last, which saw her own face lighting up. Then she blinked and asked, Wait, do you have brain damage? Well, I'm not entirely sure yet, but the doctors are apparently pretty confident in my chances of a full recovery, especially since they're letting me have visitors right after I've woken up, he said with a pained laugh. But if Ida actually brings me homework while I'm in here, I might conveniently pass out again. Mina laughed at first, then became more thoughtful. What if I brought you the class stuff? She volunteered shyly. Really? Kurai asked with an impish grin. You'd be willing to touch not one, but 2 piles worth of homework. Only if you help me with it. she replied with a matching smile. You're really going out of your way to get me to say yes, aren't you? I won't lie, it's a factor, Mina admitted. So, how about it? Yeah, sure, as long as Ida doesn't find out, he nodded. He thinks dating within the class is a bad idea, so if he sees us visiting, even just to do homework, he'll jump to conclusions. Is it a bad idea? I'm not sure yet, but we'll likely find out sometime in the next few weeks, Kurai chuckled. Thanks for offering to pick up my schoolwork, Ashido. Drop the last name, she said with a cheery smile and a wink. Call me Mina. You know, before I met you, I needed way more time to be comfortable by calling people with their first name. He half laughed. But you certainly have a way of disarming people with your charm, Mina. Does this mean I get to call you Kurai? I get the feeling that you'd do that whether I gave you permission or not. You're not wrong.
All right. So I hope you guys just enjoyed the audio chapter that I did. It's been one of the most fun ones for me to write so far. I love writing action scenes. Unfortunately, they're kind of boring for somebody I know. But I don't know. What did you think? Did this one hold your interest at all, or was just another run of the mill?
Most generally, unless it's there's some other scenes that you've written that are action packed that like really I get into them. This one, for me, because it's so similar to the original, I'm more interested in the dialogue between Todoroki and Kurai. Because they haven't really interacted much in the past. They are kind of similar.
They've got some similarities. I mean, they're both very powerful. Their quirks kind of come naturally to them, or at least they practiced enough with them where they're better than the average pro already. Where the similarity really strikes me in a way is their parentage. Both of them have fathers that are well respected by the hero community.
But one of them has nothing but respect for his father, and the other
one has a lot of resentment. So there are the parallels, but there's also something very different about the two of them.
Yeah, so I think it was overdue for them to have an interaction, and the result was pretty much the same, but they were able to kind of have this experience of being comrades in this life or death situation.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of you already were probably thinking, is this kind of overkill to put two of the strongest characters together? And the reason I defend this is because Kurai's presence or absence wouldn't have impacted the story much at all. I'm sure some of you thought that I was going to put him with Deku and Asui, but
that's such a pivotal, I think, problem-solving situation for them.
Yeah.
That I think it's important for them to, work it out. And granted, in the original show, Mineta was with them, but
and he kind of helped bind the villains together. But I don't think it made that much of a difference. So I felt free enough to move Kurai to another area where his presence would have more of an impact on the story that's unfolding.
Yeah. So I think Deku and Sue definitely could have taken them on their own.
Yeah.
And I think it was important for them to, because that's kind of what that fight was for them too.
Yeah.
We hadn't really seen a lot from Sue aside from her snarky comments periodically, and so it was really neat to see her in action for the first time and have her interact with the hero, in the original. So I think I like that you left that scene pretty much the way it had been.
Yeah. The difference for
nasty perv boy.
Yeah. The difference for Deku here was that he still I don't think I said it outright, but he still broke his fingers because he still needed to pull off a 100% smash. But his right arm he was able to fight with just fine because Kurai already helped him figure out how to just channel part of his power into parts of his body, so he didn't injure himself any further when he went to help Kurai after Kurai rescued Aizawa.
Yeah.
And speaking of rescuing Aizawa, yes, we did get the lightsaber. I remember we're going into writing this scene that I was trying to think about, would the saber make it past Nomu's shock absorption? And then I realized it's a blade of energy. If the energy is not creating an explosion, there's no actual concussive force. There's nothing for Nomu to absorb. So the blade would just cut right through him. And we see that he lasers him, and the explosion doesn't, the laser initial impact cuts through Nomu, but the explosion doesn't do anything to him. Kurai was, if Kurai had more practice, he probably would have been a better match against Nomu. But he's still, he just started being in the hero course. He has some martial arts training, obviously, but he's never faced anything like Nomu. None of these kids have. A lot of heroes haven't even seen anything like him. And so that at this point, you're probably like, well, then how did Kurai do so well against Nomu? He did and he didn't. And by no means am I saying that Kurai, with this chapter, by no means am I saying that Kurai is as powerful as All Might. I was actually watching Two Heroes earlier today, and there's a point in the movie where you get to see like the peak of All Might's power, like where his energy readings were at, and how they've dropped ever since this fight with All For One. And at the time when he fought Nomu, he's basically down to a quarter of his original strength. And that is Kurai's maximum right now. So he's nowhere near All Might was when he was like in his prime days, like up to him fighting All For One. So let me just put that out right there. Kurai does not have god powers. That would be absolutely ridiculous at this point. He's crazy strong, yes, but there's a really bad drawback that comes to it. I mean, the power up nearly killed him. And he didn't even win against Nomu. He thought he got him for a second, but his head was Nomu's head was left, so his body could regenerate out of that.
All he really managed to do was slow him down, so that
All Might,
out the way that they originally
All Might
did.
shows up. Deku tries to save All Might. All that stuff happens off screen. I didn't cover any of that because A, Kurai was out. B, you can just go watch the anime to get a pretty good idea of what would have happened. Yeah. Following that, though, was definitely the second half of the chapter was definitely my original content.
Yeah, because that's all when Kurai's in the hospital.
Yep, and something that happened important right off the bat was we actually get to see. We saw his brother briefly, like on screen for like a minute. But this is the first time where we actually get to see his mother and father on screen as well, and we get to have a kind of a family dynamic moment. I wanted to give you guys an idea of like how they interact with each other. Granted, this is a post-life or death situation, so their interaction wouldn't be the most normal that you'd ever get out of them. But I think you get a pretty good idea of what their relationships to one another must be like.
I mean, this has to be one of the most, like, normal, like, stable family units I've ever seen in this kind of story.
Just from me or from this kind of story?
General, the genre at all. Like, you do not see these kind of stable home environments with main characters very often. Yeah. And so it's interesting, really with any characters, almost. And so I think it's interesting that you did that with this character. I'm looking forward to see where you go with that. Yeah. I mean, granted, his father isn't necessarily a normal person, so you can't. So I don't know, but I think stable is what I meant.
Oh, okay, stable. Okay.
Yeah. They're unique in that his father's an important person, but it's like you have this very traditional family unit with parents who, because I feel like most of the time in anime you have like the crazy parents who are just fighting, or the mom's like out of control and the dad's chill or whatever, or vice versa. And so it's or
one of the parents is missing,
dead,
or one of them's dead, one of them's missing, one of them's overseas, so on and so forth.
So it's interesting that you have this very traditional family unit happening, and so we'll see.
I think I definitely draw that from my own experience growing up. Like, it's an unfortunate truth that this day and age, there's not a lot of traditional family units that are still healthy and stay together. So I kind of,
it's a rarity.
It is a rarity. It is a rarity these days. Unfortunate as it is, but I kind of thought that maybe I should go for that angle with him because, in a way, it is unique. It is unique to this genre. Now that I think about it, because. Most of the time I come up with, this tragic backstory or this crazy thing happened to them. Mm-hmm. I was just kind of like, why don't I just give them it is unusual to see a normal family life. And I was like, why don't I just throw this character into that and see how that floats his boat? And,
right.
I mean, I think it works pretty well.
Yeah, I think so. And then we have the annoying little brother who's, obviously the gears are turning and Mina's outside and she seems extra worried. So, of course,
the little brother's got to make fun.
He's going to figure it out real fast because he's the genius.
I'm the eldest brother, so I'm the eldest brother of 3, so that's the perspective I'm writing from. I love my brothers, and they sure as heck got on my nerves sometimes.
Yes, but I thought that was kind of a funny little cute moment.
Yeah.
With the younger brother. And then
It seems like insignificant in like the grand scheme of things, but I think it's important to establish the family dynamic that's happening between them.
Definitely. And I think anytime you're writing, it's good to make sure that you have a purpose for whatever you're inserting.
No wasted sentences.
Yeah, if you're writing a sentence and it has no purpose,
it does nothing to drive the plot forward.
Deadwood.
Yep. Deadwood?
Yeah, I had an English teacher at one point who like got on me because I can be super superfluous with my words, and
purple prose kind of thing.
It's overkill, and she kicked my butt. And she I remember all of my papers. I'd have like a 20-page paper, and it'd just be covered in red lines, Deadwood, 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 and I'd get so mad. But it's like I think about it, I'm like, wow, that sentence had no purpose at all. I could have just summed this entire paragraph up with one sentence, and it helps you to be more concise. But I think, anytime you're writing, especially with this kind of story, you want to make sure everything is intentional, just like any type of art, Same thing with visual art. You want to make sure what you're doing looks intentional. Yep. So so family, and then friends come in.
What did you think about the conversations that he had with his friends, and we'll lead up to Mina because that's its own thing.
Yeah. So first we had
Ida, Uraraka, and Deku come in.
Deku, yeah, they come in. For me, that kind of went the way I expected because those are the people who he kind of hangs out with the most and is just kind of like friends with at this point.
Yeah.
And so it's just. Yeah, they're catching up and making sure he's okay, cool. Yeah. And then I feel like it gets more interesting because it's the people you're not sure.
Because like him and Kirishima, they've gotten along well so far.
And I love Kirishima. I feel like this when he comes in, it's like super cool because you can tell there's no bitterness. Even if he at one point had a crush on Mina, he can tell she's interested, and he's just being a total bro and backing off, which I think is really cool.
Which I feel like that's his character.
That's him. That is Kirishima. He's the kind of person who's just really respectful and cool with that kind of thing.
Yep. And then you got Todoroki being the little edge boy in the corner. I thought about making the interaction a little more personable. But at this point in the story, he's not
out of his shell yet.
He's not come out of his shell at all. No.
This is very early on in his character development. We don't
the fact that he came at all was kind of I don't want to say pushing it, but big deal is a way to say it.
Well, I think because they had that moment when they were fighting together, it makes sense. He's the kind of person that would want to show his support. But he's also really awkward and wouldn't really know what to say either. So I can see it playing out that way if it were to happen in the real story. And then after they come in, we have Mina.
We have Mina who comes in. Yep. Who has decided to up the ante and just say I'm interested.
I'm really curious to see how your readers feel about this because I feel like you approach romantic situations so different from other writers, and I feel like people are.
I don't know how to take that.
Well, I feel like Kurai is so standoffish about this. Like me as a girl, I would be really hurt if I put myself out there and he was acting like this. And I totally get it; it's reasonable. That's his personality. He's very cautious, but it's just and I can see Mina, she's got a strong personality, and I feel like she could, she's the kind who could be I can wait, to see what you feel.
She's pretty confident in herself.
Yeah, and so it's just hard for me because I feel like that would be a challenging situation.
Well, I tried to factor, the biggest theme that's going there is opposites attract.
Mm-hmm. So what was your purpose for him being so standoffish about it?
Like he mentions before, he's a very cautious individual. And Ida talked to him about it, and he's Ida's his best friend. If his friend gives him a piece of advice, he's not just gonna whatever. He's gonna take it seriously. He has been thinking on what Ida said. If they get romantically involved, it could cause disruptions to the class dynamic at a later date. He has been thinking on that. But he had a really good time with Mina. He thinks that she's fun to be around. So there's these two. I feel like in adolescence it'd be very hard to decide between the two things.
Okay, so because the way I read it, it was more he couldn't decide if he liked her or not. So that's not what you were trying.
No, that's not what I was trying. Okay. That's not what I was trying to say. He definitely likes her. but he doesn't really know what to do with that. Because, I mean, if you think about his life so far, he's spent most of his time, like studying hard. Because, like, he's not a natural genius like his younger brother, you know?
He has to work real hard for it.
Yeah, he has to work hard for his
It's a typical trope in anime where you have the person who has to work twice as hard to get where everybody else is.
I wouldn't say that he has to work twice as hard. Like, he's smart. He's smart, but he has to put effort in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like who am I thinking of? Like, Deku is he's fourth in academics in their class. Like, he's not naturally smart or anything, but he puts in the effort. And I think that's something he and Kurai have.
He's also got this very obsessive analytical brain that's
This
just
is true.
good for strategy.
But also, you know, Kurai was raised by a cop, you know, very no-nonsense household.
Yeah.
If he's going to commit to something, especially with something in law enforcement, he better take it seriously. And actually, that's another thing. We kind of got to see a little more about his upbringing. Well, in this chapter, we get to see... we kind of get to see one of the main reasons behind why he wants to be a hero and why he acted as he did when he fought the Nomu. Because he could have run away. He could have run away and tried to lead the villain away, but he chose to stand his ground and fight because he knew that was the best way to delay Nomu killing the others. But yeah, we get to see like I guess it's kind of like
you have that outburst from Mina, and it's almost like him, hey. Like, I thought about what I was doing. It wasn't just being irrational. I had a reason. This is the kind of person I am. This is the kind of person I want to be. And so that was kind of neat because that kind of helped her to feel resolved about her next statement, too.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? I almost, like, when I was first creating the character, again, I thought about giving him a jacked up family life in which, you know, his dad would have died, like, as a police hero or something. I decided to change to be an uncle because I wanted to have that well-constructed whole family. But on the side, for lack of a better term, there is a tragedy that occurred that affected them all deeply. Like, not just him, you know, it affected his father. It would affect his brother, his mother.
And now we have this personal grudge against Endeavor also.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out
as
things move forward.
Yep. I'm interested to. It'll be interesting when he comes into contact with Endeavor.
It's good that he seems to give Todoroki the benefit of the doubt. Like, he's kind of guarded with him, but he's also, like, not being a jerk to him because he doesn't like his dad.
Like, they're stuck to, it's like, work together or maybe die together, you know, kind of thing. It's like, they don't, like he says it, he's like, we've got more important things to do than discuss our pedigrees.
Yeah.
So, like, so I hope that also gives a little bit more insight into what kind of person he is, because it's like, he's not one of those people that thinks sins of the father falls on the son kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we got to see what Kurai was really capable of when he lets loose, the price that comes attached to it. We get to see a little bit more about, like, why he does the stuff that he does. Honestly, like, I think actually at this point we've covered most of his backstory.
Yeah, so I mean, he has a very, like, chill backstory. Like, I feel like for me, yeah. Like,
for people that are usually going into this stuff, it's like every hero has a tragic backstory. Kurai's like, I don't have that. I mean, my uncle died, and that sucks, and I want to do his memory honor, but I'm good.
I'm always fascinated when I meet those people in real life because I'm like, my life's been insane. And so when I meet people who have had these, like, really chill lives and they have, like, nothing crazy to tell, I'm like, wow, that's almost bizarre to me, but I'm intrigued by you. And so we'll see.
Let's see. So what do we got coming? So I think that was it for this chapter, right?
I think so, yeah.
So
that's about it.
Coming up next is actually a chapter that's completely my own original content, so you guys can look forward to that. If you guys don't know about this already, there is a poll going up on my fanfiction profile where I've been working on my drawing skills recently, and I want to take a scene out of one of my fan stories and turn it into a short comic. I'm having a hard time deciding which one is the problem, so I turn to you guys to put in your votes and tell me which story you'd like to see come to life or come to be illustrated. And Your Hero Academia is one of them, but there are a few others that you can pick from if this one isn't totally your jam. On that, I think that's it. Did I miss anything? Nope. Alrighty, well, we will see you guys again in a couple of weeks, and to everybody that's in America, a happy Independence Day to you. Stay plus ultra, everybody.